The morning sky stretched wide and blue over the city, sunlight gleaming off the pristine white columns of one of the most prestigious banks in the financial heart of downtown. Another busy day had begun. Inside, Edward Hawkins, the seasoned branch manager, was savoring his morning ritual, a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a list of high-value transactions in the other. The subtle hum of the bank's activity played as background music to his daily sense of control and authority. Years of experience in finance had made Edward confident in one thing: his ability to read people. He prided himself on being able to size up clients at first glance. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people had walked through those grand glass doors, and with a single look, Edward could supposedly determine who deserved priority service and who required a little more scrutiny. Then she walked in. For a moment, the entire energy of the bank shifted, subtle but undeniable. A tall black woman, poised and confident, crossed the threshold. Her navy blue tailored business suit hugged her form perfectly, and in her hand she carried a sleek leather briefcase, the kind only the truly successful owned. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floors as she moved, her presence commanding attention, though she didn't seek it. All eyes followed her, not because she was loud or disruptive, but because, in this world of wealth and influence, people like her were rarely considered to belong. She made her way directly to the teller window, placed a check on the counter, and offered a polite, effortless smile. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm yet assertive. "I'd like to deposit this into my account." The young teller, Anna, glanced at the check. Her fingers paused mid-motion, eyes widening just slightly before she caught herself and returned to her professional demeanor. It wasn't just any check. It was a 7-figure deposit. Anna swallowed hard. "Ma'am, this is quite a large amount," she said softly, lowering her voice. "Would you mind stepping into the manager's office for approval?" The woman didn't flinch. Her smile didn't waver. "Of course," she replied, her voice composed, as if she'd expected this all along. Moments later, she found herself walking toward Edward Hawkins' glass-walled office, the weight of every eye in the bank following her. She knew exactly how this would go. Edward, however, was already preparing for what he believed was an inevitable confrontation. Edward watched from his office as the woman approached. Through the glass walls, he could see the elegance in her stride, the deliberate calm in her posture. Yet his instincts, sharpened by decades in banking, screamed caution. He stood as she entered, but he didn't extend his hand. "No polites mai. No warm greeting." "Please have a seat," he said, his tone cold, almost dismissive. The woman sat down, placed her briefcase on the desk, and calmly slid the check across. "I'd like this deposited into my account," she repeated. Edward picked up the check, expecting what exactly? A forgery? A mistake? Instead, he found himself staring at a legitimate 7-figure amount. His fingers twitched as he tried to suppress the unease rising in his chest. "And you are?" he asked, not looking up. "Vanessa Collins," she replied, her tone level. "I'm the CEO of Collins Innovations." Edward's mind raced. He'd never heard of Collins Innovations, but that didn't mean anything. Still, something in him resisted accepting this. The numbers, the professionalism, the flawless paperwork, it all checked out. But deep down, Edward couldn't silence the bias whispering that something didn't add up. "I'll need to verify the source of these funds," he said at last, tapping the check with his pen. Vanessa's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "All the necessary documentation is attached. You can contact my legal team for confirmation." Edward hesitated. Her calm unnerved him. People trying to hide something didn't behave like this. But still, something gnawed at him. "Standard procedure," he insisted. But Vanessa wasn't buying it. "Is it?" she asked, her tone soft but edged with steel. "Or is this just standard procedure for someone like me?" The words cut through the tension like a blade. Edward stiffened. The implication was clear. Before he could respond, a knock sounded at the door. Anna, the teller, poked her head in, looking hesitant. "Mr. Hawkins," she began, "I just wanted to mention that MS. Collins is a regular client. I've handled her transactions before. There's never been an issue. Edward's jaw tightened. Thank you, Anna. That will be all. Anna glanced at Vanessa, offered a brief, apologetic smile, and slipped out. Vanessa leaned forward slightly. So what's it going to be? Are you going to process my deposit? Or should I make a few phone calls? Edward's throat felt dry. He didn't need her to explain. He knew exactly who she was planning to call, and it wouldn't end well for him. 20 minutes later, the bank's atmosphere had changed. Conversations were quieter, eyes flickered toward Edward's office, and tension hung in the air like heavy fog. The office door swung open again, this time with force. In walked Margaret Daniels, the regional director, Edward's direct superior. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Edward," she said curtly, "what exactly is going on here?" Before he could answer, Vanessa stood and turned to Margaret. "Ms. Daniels, I'm Vanessa Collins. I own a significant portion of this bank's shares." Margaret's face shifted instantly from mild irritation to sharp realization. "Ms. Collins," she said, her tone shifting into one of respect. "I deeply apologize. This shouldn't have happened." Edward felt his stomach sink. Margaret turned back to him, her expression now icy. "Edward, you should have recognized this situation before it escalated." Vanessa stepped forward, her voice calm but powerful. "It's not just about me. It's about the system that allows this kind of judgment to exist." And with that, Edward Hawkins' career crumbled. The fallout was swift. Edward was given the option to resign or face a full investigation. He didn't need to be told twice. He resigned within 24 hours. Vanessa, on the other hand, didn't stop there. In an emergency board meeting, she pushed for systemic changes within the bank, stricter anti-discrimination policies, bias training for employees, and new procedures to prevent subjective judgment on large transactions. She wasn't interested in revenge. She wanted reform, and she got it. Weeks later, Vanessa returned to the branch, this time not as a client under scrutiny, but as someone the entire staff now recognized and respected. The atmosphere was different. Employees straightened their postures. Eyes followed her, but this time with admiration, not suspicion. At the front desk, Anna stood waiting, a nervous but hopeful look on her face. Vanessa smiled. "Anna, I haven't forgotten how you spoke up that day. That took guts." Anna blinked in surprise. Thank you, Ms. Collins. I just thought it was the right thing to do." "It was," Vanessa replied. "And people who do the right thing, even when it's hard, deserve opportunities." She handed Anna a card. "I'm starting a mentorship program for young professionals. I'd like you to be a part of it." Anna's mouth opened, but no words came out. Instead, she simply nodded, overwhelmed. Vanessa smiled again, turned, and walked out of the bank, this time not just as a client, not just as a shareholder, but as someone who had changed the system from within. Because sometimes real power isn't about control. It's about using your voice to make things right.